welcome to Taking on the Tradition. As ever, thank you very much to my sponsor, Get a Word in Edgeways Festival, whose lovely Zoom I'm playing with, which means I can do this lovely webinar format, and means that we don't have all of the boxes. So don't worry that you can't see yourself. It's meant to be like that. You just say hi on the chat, put your feet up, don't worry what you look like, and if you're eating your tea, it's all absolutely fine. We're just delighted to have your company. So what else do I need to tell you at the beginning? I think that's about it really, apart from we're in for a fantastic evening. Do keep chatting on the chat all the way through. I will try and keep on top of it, and I'll be reading your comments. If you have a burning question that you definitely want me to see, there's another button down there, which is the Q&A. So if you open that up, I will be looking at that at the end, and I'll go through those, and I'll leave some time. I will try and leave some time at the end to ask Kasper some questions from all of you. So put them there, and then I will be able to find them. Oh, I've got a few more people coming in. My goodness, it is snowing in New York. Lucky you, Sarah. So you're feeling that Advent feeling, the first day of Christmas. It's snowing in New York. You're very welcome to be here, as is everybody else. Hello, Narissa. But I think there's one person that we really need to say hello to now. So this series is Storytellers and the Lands They Live and Walk. And tonight we are going to Denmark to a fantastic storyteller. Some of you will have seen him alongside Fred Versonnen at Blast a couple of months ago. And I'm going to introduce you to the fantastically wonderful Kasper Sørensen. Now he's going to laugh at me now. I'm doing my best. Was that an okay-ish pronunciation?
Very close to how I do it.
You should do it. Let everybody know how it's supposed to be done.
Velkommen til Kasper Sørensen.
Marvellous. So Kasper's going to show off his exemplary English all evening while I show you how completely and utterly dreadful I am at Danish. But Kasper, there's lots that we're going to talk about, and lots that people are going to find out about you over the evening. But it's great to have people in from all over the world tonight, which we obviously have. I have to say I know very little about Denmark. I would like to know more, and I suspect that some of the other people do as well. So when I think about Denmark and Copenhagen, I know about the Little Mermaid. I think it's probably quite cold and snowy in the wintertime, and I think you probably have trolls, and that's about as far as I get. So put me right.
Well,
tell me a little bit about Denmark.
Not wrong at all, but we have a few more things. I live in the capital, Copenhagen, and I live pretty much downtown, and even as it's pretty dark outside. I have a big park outside my window. It's just black, except for one Christmas tree that's really lighting up the whole night and kind of like collects the neighborhood, and everybody will come to their window and look out and have a big sign. Oh, actually, we're going to pull through this year, and we're going to do it together in a good spirit and have Christmas and open the present of 2021 and hope for the best. So that's Denmark right now. It is cold. Actually, we have the kind of cold because we have a lot of ocean in Denmark and we have a lot of wind. So it's the kind of cold that bites your skin off, but there's no snow. It's just cold. And my childhood was full of white winters, but they kind of disappeared now for unknown reasons. And now we just have black winters of cold and darkness. But we have warm hearts, and we like our storytelling in Denmark, and we have a tradition of singing when we're together, and we are, well, I think just trying to make it through with the Danish irony that can be a sharp sword for some people. And we know that we have this famous Danish word called hygge. You're all welcome to pronounce it, hygge. It means hygge. Very good.
Yeah.
Hygge. It means kind of having a cozy time together, not like having fun, but it's when you light the fireplace and the candles and you roast the marshmallows and you have a blanket and you have these very long, stretchy hours of hygge. It could be playing a board game or just chatting we call that hygge. That's apparently
So Rachel's saying it's beautiful. She wants to know how to spell it so she can look it up and use it to say to other people.
Well, hygge is Hygge.
That was close, Narissa. I'm the same. It's a bit like a hug then.
Yeah,
like
I know. But it's kind of like when the mood in the room is one big hug.
Yeah,
that's hygge. Yeah, that's hygge.
That's just a great description. I love that. And we are going to have to talk about trolls though, because I've set off a whole conversation in the chat about trolls and whether Denmark has them or not.
Well, yes.
Meta is saying there are definitely trolls.
Well, yes, but now we don't have so many trolls anymore because of the Me Too situation. We kind of like put the trolls away. No, in our tradition, we have a lot of trolls. In our folktale tradition, we have a lot of troll stories of many different sizes. In the part of Denmark that is most to the east, there's a little island called Bornholm, which is a beautiful little island that you should all go to because it's so lovely. But there we have a series of very small trolls that live just underground, and they are used to scare all the children from falling in the wells. And they get blamed for everything, but they're really harmless. They can't do anything. They're just so small and so tiny tails, and they're just like little children, really, except they're trolls, but they're scary. Or not really, but they are. And in the Jutland, in the wild coast of Jutland, where the amber witch dances and the waves just pound from the sea, we have the big trolls, the giants that can fight and wrestle bears and throw stones 100 miles, and those kind of trolls with the big noses and the warts and the hair on the wart and that kind of thing. Troll.
I love trolls. There is a lot of love for trolls actually,
Yes.
and also for hygge. Am I saying it right?
Hygge, yeah.
Obviously, it's the word of the moment. We've got Sandy Toksvig is going to be doing a thing about it on Radio 4 tomorrow. She's having a whole sort of session of hygge.
Oh, nice.
Gathering all her friends around. So this is what we need to be doing. I think this year is just, and it's definitely the time of year for that. And in lots of ways, it sounds very, very British. We're quite into dark winters as well, with less snow, and I think everybody is up for that hug environment, that space with the trolls outside.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, really, I think that you guys are really good at it. And we just coined the phrase, so we claim it, but you guys are really good at it. You just grabbed the word and ran.
So did you grow up with these stories of the little trolls and the big trolls?
Yes. I was a very, very fortunate child. I didn't know at the time, but I felt it somehow. The school that I went to was in the Danish tradition of Grundtvig. You may know of Grundtvig. His big thing was that everybody should have an education, and that things are not mentioned by words, they are created by words. You craft with your words. So the school I went to, a lot of the classes were storytelling. The teachers told you stories, which was just amazing. Like when I was 7, this very old man came in, and he had hairs, weird, funny places, and eyes like a hawk, and he would stand up, and everybody would just be in one common breath and looking at this old man, and he would start to talk. And very soon we would be in Greece, and very soon we would be plowing with a man named Odysseus, and we would go to Troy because there was some princess getting stolen, and the whole classroom just turned into salty water and horses made of wood and big walls and fires that were blue and witches and Achilles. And in that year, he told me and the other children the whole Odyssey. And I didn't know that was not normal for 7-year-olds to have that in school. And the next year, he started on all the Norse mythology of Thor and Odin and all our friends up there. And then all the Nordic folk tales. And as I grew older, I suddenly knew all these stories. So yes, I grew up with them, but I didn't know. So when I got in the gymnasium, the level after high school, and I had history, I was like, yes, I'm gonna have storytelling. And I put my feet up and I was expecting storytelling, and the teacher placed a book in front of me. And I had this weird realization, why is he giving me a book? I don't get it. And he says, you have to read this book. I said, no, you have to tell me a story, sir. I said, no, we don't do that, read this book. And that was horrible, because I just wanted to like sail with Odysseus. And of course I knew the story, so it was really easy to be there, because this guy 12 years earlier told me. So yes, I grew up with them, is the very short answer to that.
But it was great. So it was kind of world mythology and stories from everywhere, I guess.
Yes, it was the same guy who told the stories all the years, and he just then for half a year he would do all the Greek mythology, and then he would do the Roman mythology, and then he would do the Danish or the Nordic. He would change around. So we got them all, and then he would say, okay, and this god in that mythology refers to this guy, and they have kind of like similar, Odin and Zeus kind of like have similar issues in their mentality, in their mental health, and they have, one have lightning in a thing, when the other guys has a spear and kind of looks like the same. So yes, I still keep that man very much alive. He was old when I was a child. So, and I know he's dead now. And I met his granddaughter. She was at a place I was telling stories, and I paid my respect to him. It's like one person said, how did you become a storyteller? And I'm not sure where it began, but somewhere on that school chair as a 7-year-old, sailing with Odysseus, getting tied to the mast, hearing the sirens, right about there was the first, I don't know the English expression, the first hunch that I might one day live with these stories some more. But then again, my classmates didn't turn out storytellers, so maybe it's not that. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Did they enjoy them as much as you did?
I don't know, because
they lived them in the same way.
I have no clue, because I was just absorbed. I will try and talk to them about it. I know a few of them still. I will reach out and ask them.
It might be interesting to know. But I'm guessing so. But you thought of him as a teacher then, really, rather than
He was a teacher. He was the teacher. Yeah.
So maybe, I mean, I'm guessing if you were thinking of that way, then maybe you were thinking about being a teacher rather than a storyteller. I mean, did you know that such a thing as a storyteller existed?
No. I when I was an adult, I told stories for kids for a few years. And then I saw this little handmade poster saying storytelling for adults. I said, huh? What's that? And it was in the summer of '96. And in Denmark, that summer was a constant 2 months of blue skies. It wasn't even night, it was just blue skies. And it was in a park. The grass was so green, the sky was so blue, and there was a bench all white. And on that bench sat a man, just sat there. And we were 40 people, 40 adults in the grass. And he opened his mouth and started talking movies. Not about movies, but inner movies. And half my brain was exploding in senses and colors and images. And the other half was really in, what do you call it, when you don't want stuff, when you're in against it somehow.
Yeah, just
try to keep it out, because I couldn't understand it, because this were for children. I knew that. But I was enjoying it as a child. And I recognized all these old feelings of being told a story, and I just fell in love with it once more. And afterwards I said, I don't know how you did that, but I would like to get to know you, and I want to hear more stories. And he nodded and said, well, come join me. And we started working together, and his name is Hans Lawrence. And we formed a company together. And now we have a story club together called the Bestsellers in Copenhagen. So that was the beginning of a wonderful fairy tale, actually, to be in the grass listening to flowers and fishing trips and secrets.
So you've set up this company. I mean, was it, had storytelling kind of mostly faded away in Denmark before then? Was it just you two?
It totally disappeared. It wasn't there. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, there was sprinkles of one guy sharing a story and one guy sharing on one woman there. And there was really basically nothing. The most thing that came back. What do you call that?
Resurgence?
No,
Re-emergence?
every month when you.
Recurring?
Yeah, probably. Recurring thing was Sunday afternoon, one Sunday a month at a cafe. And we would have a wonderful audience of, we call them the ladies with the blue hair, because that's what they are. And they all have amber, and they're really from the nicer parts of town, and they have good time, and they have wonderful audiences. And they would sit and listen very politely and very wonderfully. We would share our tales with them.
Did you ever call them that to their faces?
Well, yeah, why not? It's the truth. It's not bad. It's just the face of life for some women. That's fine. And we talked about, we didn't want to become like the church in Denmark that have only people getting older and no one young. So we figured, okay, how can we actually go with the tradition instead of repeating the tradition? How can we renew it? Like Grundtvig said, how can we craft the tradition once more? And then we started working together on what storytelling could be in Denmark. And that's pretty much.
Well, I think that's, I mean, for me, I think that's really important. I mean, because tradition, it's a moving thing, it's an evolving thing, it's about people, it's a reflection of people. And if you start kind of just trying to fix it in cement, it doesn't breathe.
You might as well bury it.
And in some ways, I mean, I absolutely love books, but I mean, I do feel that kind of stories that are carried in the oral tradition is, again, you put them in books and they're frozen. And it's great that they've kind of been put into the freezer for you, so you can get them out and you can warm them up and you can do things with them, and they're still there for you, but they can't move. I mean, that's the whole thing, is that people don't remember word for word. It's exactly the inner movies that you were talking about, that changes, and our reference points have completely changed. You know, if we're trying to tell stories from 100 years ago, we live in a different world.
We live in a different world. And I think I like you, I love books. I love reading, and I so think that everybody should read more. But that's just a different game. It's usually reading is between you and the book, or you and the author. It's not about you and other people very much. Storytelling is about us, about giving up time and space for a while and share a journey somewhere else, to go in the story and enjoy it. And I think that's best done together. And a book is best done alone.
I definitely agree with the storytelling side of that. I think there is a pure joy in sharing a book and reading aloud with people. And I think that is also something that people, in the same way that people used to think that storytelling is for children, I think people think that reading books together is for children. But I adore to be read to. And that thing of kind of, you know, of reading to somebody else and getting to a funny bit and just laughing together, or, you know, just sharing those moments.
I totally agree that if you have someone that can actually read well out loud, that's so wonderful. But they don't have to be a book. They can just be a story.
Well, absolutely. And anyway, we can push that to one side, because we're here to talk about storytelling, really.
Yes.
And you're talking about reinventing the craft, and kind of the motto for the best tellers is urban and urgent, which just sounds like there's to me that sounds like there's a definite kind of like, it's putting a big banner on going, we are not storytelling for children, and we don't really want to be associated with this oldie worldy folky namby pamby kind of and creating something new. I mean, it's quite a political banner to put out there, really.
Yes, it is. And I'm not always sure that it was very clever, but that is what we did. And I still think it's right, though, that we want to recraft the tradition by not repeating it, by renewing it. We saw that in Denmark, folk music had a terrible destiny, that there was a society insisting that they had to do it their ways, and that kind of like closed in on itself. Now we have 200 great folk musicians that play for each other, and they're kind of wonderful but weird in the corner. And it just won't grow from there. And we didn't want storytelling to become a museum. We wanted to become something that was a part of the cultural life, not something you visited and saw and left for your real life. We wanted to be a part of the city life. So the urban part is recognizing we are Copenhagen storytellers. It is not about talking down to the tradition or saying that the folk tales or the fairy tales or the troll stories shouldn't be there. They have their place. Absolutely. I love them. The urban part of it is recognizing that our audience comes from the big city. They've probably been driving the car or the metro. They're not in a carriage and park their horse outside. They have electrical light and they have cell phones in their pockets. We know this. So let's not pretend all of that doesn't exist. Let's pretend it does exist, and that even though you have a cell phone in your pocket and 1,000 possibilities at reach, our stories should still be intriguing enough to capture your heart and your breath in your now. So you don't want to go into your phone. So you want to stay with us. To me, the urban part of it is that. So the stories we tell can be invented on the spot or improvised, or it can be something that happened in our life, like yesterday, or the personal stories that we worked more with, or it can be the tradition that we go with the Nordic tales or the biblical tales even, or traditional Spanish or South American tales. That's fine. The question is, how we ask ourselves as storytellers, how does this relate to the modern audience? Why do I want to share this story with them? And if the answer is because it's a good story, then we have to look again, because that's good, but it's also expected. If you come to the best tellers, you can expect good stories. That's only fair. So the question comes back to why? What do you see in this story that has something to provide for a modern audience? And why does it have to be told now? How does it reflect the society somehow? What angle can you put on a story that reflects something in society or in you or in the audience at this point? Like you probably all share the story of the woman who has to pluck hairs from the bear's chest to give to her to cure her son. Do you know this story of chest hairs of the bear? It's a wise man tells her she has to go and do that, and she goes and she has to go closer very slowly and tame the bear enough to pluck the hair. And when you put that in the context of our soldiers returning veterans from Afghanistan, of being PTSD, of sleeping with guns under their pillows, of being traumatized, and how does families break up when a father comes home like that? Okay, how do you re-enter him into society? Okay, maybe then, if you go really careful and really slow, maybe you can get to include him once more. So as an example of how do you think your stories, what kind of answer do they provide, or advice or even question do they raise that we should consider in our society?
So the best tellers started in sort of the late 90s, didn't it?
Yes.
And it's still going. So
yes.
The obvious question is, did all of that work? I mean, because the vision is great. How did it go into practice? And it obviously has worked because you're still going.
Well, we shopped around for a while. We tried different sceneries. We did a comedy club. We did a library. We did 2 different cafes and a theater. And then finally we got our own place. So we have our own venue that we thought, okay, how do we design a story club? How should it look? And then what should it do? And we put a lot of mirrors on the wall, like the metaphor of stories being mirrors. And we wanted fairly good seats and a black box and simple light and good stories. And it worked out pretty good. I'd say we have shows every week. We're still going, even though there's Corona. We are down to 20 audiences now. So that's what the room can fit with the Danish regulatives. But that's fine. We have a very strong and lovely and beautiful crowd that we call the volunteers, because they are volunteers. And they run the bar and the seating and the tickets, and they create great moods and spirits, and they're just the best, really. So there's always this big pounding heart going on when you enter the Bestsellers Club, and you're welcome instantly, and people have big smiles, and they say welcome, not because they are paid to or they have to, or I told them to, because they want to, because you are welcome, because you are joining now, at least for one night, our family down there. And that, I think I can proudly say, worked out pretty well.
Well, really well, I think. If you've managed to create that atmosphere, and if it's been going for over 20 years, I think that's really impressive.
It's pretty good, yeah.
So how many bestsellers are there? Is it just you and Hans?
Well, we are the founding fathers. And then we decided, okay, we will do a booking company. We will have more people. So we started inviting other people to join us. And then we got surpassed by the internet. So everybody had a web page, and in the end, there was no booking company. And we decided, okay, we will have it as like an honor brand, that when we meet a storyteller that we love, we'll just say, would you like to join us? There's absolutely no benefits in it for you, but we will put your head on our wall and be very proud to name you a bestseller. So we can support you with that. And I think we have 21 by now.
I dispute that there's any benefits with that. I think if you have a group of support like that, I think that's a huge benefit. And it's always just really easy. It's much easier to sell somebody else than it is to sell yourself.
Yes.
So, and I think that kind of that ethos, which you were telling me about before, you were saying, like, kind of in the early days, I don't know how many of you there were there, but like you used to take it in turns to be on the phone.
Yes, we still do that. We still do that. When the phone rings, there's a rule. If it's a gig, you cannot have it. If you answer the phone, you cannot have the gig. And that's okay, because then you sell one of the others, and that's fine.
You don't end up with like 5 of you sat around the phone, or like
just looking at it ring. No. No, it's fine, because most of the time, and actually pretty much all the time in Denmark, people fall in love with their first storyteller. So that's the right storyteller, and that's the style they want. And they can be very hard to turn over to your style if they heard Hans first. Oh God, they're lost. They will love him forever. and the storyteller get to define the way they listen, pretty much. So if they call for him, they call for him. It's his gig. That's fine. The big key is to make sure that we only have great tellers, so that doesn't matter who's hired, because when you call the bestsellers, you must have something good. And that's, I think, the key.
So how does that work then? So you've got this club and it's the bestsellers, but then how do people get to be the bestsellers? If that's the sort of the automatic place that people go, and that's where kind of the professionals are, how are people learning to be storytellers in Denmark?
Well, it's not the only place anymore that storytellers go. So some people consider themselves great, and some are that we haven't invited for other reasons. Maybe it just didn't happen yet, or maybe something else. And they can pretty much do what they want. The only rule is that it must work. Whatever you do must work. You cannot be boring. You must be of interest. If not, your career will kind of go, wouldn't it? So how do people train? A lot of people in the beginning just went for it blindly. Like, I want to do this and I don't care. I just don't do this. I will perform on the street. I will break into libraries and perform there. I will do anything just to get some shows into my legs, to get experience. I want to try out. And then when we started to like say, okay, we can actually do this, and we had a venue, we say, okay, we want to keep it on top of our game and challenge each other to be the best versions of ourselves. So we are, even though we are competition, of course, when Hans get the gig, I don't get it, obviously. but still I want to keep him on his toes and make him his best. And he does the same for me. And we get a big group of sparring. Like, I have this idea. Can anybody help me? Can we do a few hours of something? If someone has an idea, we share it and work on it. And then great things happen from there.
Do you have any places where people can just go and have a go? And just because it's sort of, from what you've said, I don't know if there's anywhere kind of, you know, people, when people hear stories, I mean, that is the thing, is that kind of it tends to fill you up inside and you're just like, I've got to share this. I want to go and tell it to somebody, and they want to have a go.
Well, at Besttellers, we have shows every week. So we sometimes have the time to do open nights. It's not, we were in New York, Hans and I, for the Moth. And so, okay, we want to do this. We want to do 5-6 minute personal stories, open stage. But we just, what do you call that? We took it out of our club and placed it another place in town now, because we want to say, okay, we have great storytelling. That's it. If you want something else, go somewhere else. It's a bit, lidt arrogant, måske. Men det er sådan, vi gør. We are, I see there's an issue on how to become a professional, how to take those steps. And what we do is that we have formed a storytelling school in Copenhagen, where you can come and join. And if you go through that, the normal levels, what do you call that? Modules? The first part of it, then you can decide, okay, I want my own show. I want to do a master of storytelling, and for a year we train you. Wow. And then in the end, you do a full show.
And is that linked with an education? Have you managed to get it linked with an education establishment? I mean, do people actually get accreditation?
No, it's our very own education.
And I guess when it's a year, it's not full time.
No, it's not full time. Depends on. I mean, I cannot take the responsibility for everybody's weird dreams. So I will say, I will give you the map and the compass and the boots. And I will give you a direction, and I will tell you when you're about to fall off the cliff. But now you need to go and practice this or that. And it's very different. One woman wanted to be, she was a school teacher, and she said she wanted a history lesson, only a storytelling. That would be her show. And another woman was into wine, and she was a specialist on wine, connoisseur, a sommelier. So the stories were weaved about the wines that she would serve. And everybody comes with different wishes. So we say, okay, some people have great voices, so we spend no time with that. Some people don't. And then we call for assistance for voice coaches and say, okay, you're going to put some hours in with this one. Some people have great stage presence, so we don't touch that. Others don't. Then we see, okay, how can we get in your mind and in your breath and slow you down and make you hear? And then we work on the other stuff. And during that year, we put them on stage so they get some experience. We have a little society. That has been closed down the latest 9 months, though. A little society where people come and practice. The people on the courses meet and practice together the tools we taught them.
It sounds great. So I mean, I suppose obviously it's a little bit like here. I mean, I think there's definitely sort of maybe some of those opportunities, and the scene in London is very different to the scene in the rest of England. I mean, is there storytelling going on in the rest of Denmark and outside Copenhagen? And is that you linked in with that? Are they kind of just separate worlds?
There are a lot going on now. And it's very different worlds. We know each other, and it's kind of like Denmark is divided. Part of the country is really rural storytelling, really old, not old school, but old stories told in the right way, the way they are supposed to be told, which kind of makes my hair on my arms tingle, because I think the second that a story has to be told in the right way, you're already doomed. So we don't always agree, but it is going on, and there are great storytellers out there. Lots of Anderson, obviously, and lots of traditional, and just great and joyful. And if you go for the stories, it's wonderful. If you go for the discussion on what is right and how storytelling should be, no thanks. Is that rude?
No, I think it's quite interesting, and it's all about personal opinion. I mean, the thing about I think about storytelling is it's just so incredibly personal, and it's yeah, I think the right way to tell stories. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because like you were saying, you want people to be good. If people are going out there to be the face of storytelling and they're putting themselves out as being a professional storyteller, you want them to have a certain level of competence. But at the same time, you don't want to be telling people what to do, because
No.
Everybody has to find their own voice and their own style.
Absolutely.
And that thing that you're saying about the right way to tell stories, I think that's a really interesting thing that's happened with modern storytelling. Because actually, originally, so long ago, whenever, that there was a bit of that. You know, you would have a master and apprentice, or a mistress in it, you know, and it's, you would pass stories on and you would want certain things to be remembered, and there wouldn't be any of this malarkey about finding your own voice, because you wouldn't hear a lot of other voices really. And I think when anybody starts out, they sound like the person that they learned from, and that would be fine, because you would be taking those stories, you'd be taking them on to the next generation, and people didn't want those stories to be changed.
True.
They wouldn't be traveling as far generally. They would often be staying within a community, and they'd get stories coming in and out with travelers and with people coming through. But it's just such a switch, isn't it? That thing of being supposed to sound like the person that you learnt it from, and even, you know, particularly maybe within the bardic traditions, being beaten if you didn't sound like the person that you learnt it from, because it was supposed to be this way, and particularly if it's played with music. To now, this thing of, it is really crucial that everybody talks. That's something you hear wherever you go in the world, is this thing about having finding your voice and finding your own way of telling things.
Absolutely, and of course you should be very inspired by, have a lot of heroes, a lot of storytelling heroes that you see, oh, could I do a bit of that or borrow that? Or I know a guy who can do a show of pauses. He is so good at timing and pauses that nobody cares what he tells. It's just the excitement building up, the I don't know the English word, when you wait for something. It's a very Hitchcock word. The tenseness, I don't know. He can build it up so much that the room just kind of want to explode, and it's wonderful. And his stories are good, but they're not great. But his telling of them is great. So we all try to see, how is he doing that? Can we have a bit of that? And some storytellers, like Daniel, has this voice that you just want to shower in. Like, who do you have to kill to get that voice? Can we be inspired by that? Can we have a little of that? That would be nice. Or should we, how can we do what? And try to pick and mix our own styles and find our own voices and also ways of the story, I think.
I'm going to change the subject just a little bit, because actually your voyage, and actually voyage of storytelling and your perspective in Denmark, sounds really similar and really parallel actually to what happened in England, and the timings are very similar as well. Kind of, we had lost most, not all, we'd lost a lot of our tradition bearers, and there were a lot of broken links in our tradition. There were still lots of stories that have been kept in usually in very conversational ways and within families and within community areas, but it was still there. But when it started, it was just like a handful of people, and certainly when I started, the vast majority of storytellers were men. And now it's completely flipped. And now that there's sort of so many more storytellers around, the women outnumber men substantially, I would say.
Right.
And I just wondered if that time, because all the storytellers that you've mentioned and talked about have all been men.
Yes, I think, no, it's not the same in Denmark. The majority of the storytellers in Denmark are men that are professional. The layer beneath is mostly women. And we've talked about it. And I think maybe men are a bit more just doing it, even though they don't have the ability yet. So they just push forward and say, hey, I'm great, I can do this. Maybe that's why. And maybe if you looked in all the children's rooms in the world, who would sit next to the bed and share the bedtime story? Probably it will be mostly women. I think the storytellers of the world are mostly women. But on the stage, it's mostly men in Denmark. But it's different in England. I love to hear that.
Well, I wasn't differentiating between layers, I don't think. But I mean, I think even with professional storytellers, it's more women. But I think you're right. I think it is. I mean, there's a certain amount of trying to think what the right word is here, gall and kind of determination and maybe a little bit of arrogance as well, to just stand up in the middle of Copenhagen and go, yeah, right, we're going to start a storytelling company and we're going to call ourselves the best tellers. I've only just started, but yeah, you're great and we're going to be the best tellers. I don't see women doing that. I think we should.
I think you should, absolutely.
We should, but I don't think we do yet. I think there's maybe more young women coming through who have got that kind of chutzpah about them and kind of, yeah, let's just go for it.
Knock them dead.
But I also would disagree about who tells the children bedtime stories, but that's only my personal experience, because everybody says to me, oh, you're a storyteller, your children must get the best bedtime stories. And I go, well, they get great bedtime stories, but it isn't me that does it, because I'm the one that's around usually picking them up from school. You know, I'm self-employed, and things have changed a bit over lockdown and things, but I have been the one who picks them up. I'm the one who sees them for a while. My husband is the one who walks in at like 6:45 at bedtime, and that's the only bit of the day he gets to spend with them. And so, you know, that's a really special moment, because that's when they can actually kind of have that quality time together. And I think, you know, there's a lot of families where it is maybe the woman that's more around, and it's the man who's coming in at the end of the day. And if he doesn't take advantage of that, I'm not saying all men do, but if they don't, then yeah, there's a lot of people saying there's my dad is, I love this. Meta's suggesting we're gonna have a female company called the Even Better Tellers.
I would love that. The best storytellers,
Meta,
yes.
You and me.
Please do that. Please give us competition. That would be great.
I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know, Shane saying my dad told me stories and I told to my 3 girls. The same with my brother and Sunshine's dad. Yeah, it is. It's everybody's. A lot of people say it was their dad that told them stories.
Maybe different in Denmark. That would be the mothers mostly.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know.
Well, and it's an interesting one, and it's good. It's good that it's changing. I mean, it should be 50-50 in all parts, really. But we're not quite there on equality yet. And and it's oh, you had some grandmas, did you, Kaz? And yeah, I mean, this is the other thing, is like, it was my granddad that told me stories. It was definitely the men in my family. The women were too flipping busy. The women were the ones who were running around trying to do this, that, and the other. I mean, like, one of my grandma's favourite sayings was a woman's work is never done. The men go to work, come back, put their feet up, go, I've done my work, that's it. Women just keep going. My grandma would be there doing rag rugs, having done the tea, having done the washing up, done everything else. I mean, my granddad worked hard as well, and he would be doing the garden, but they did have very definite roles, and it would be my granddad who was playing the games. He was telling the stories, and it'd be my grandma that was making the treats and be, you know, kind of doing the cake and the slipping the bits of this and that. So,
I think that's more fluid in Denmark these days, that everybody just...
Well, I hope so.
Can, and yeah.
I definitely hope so.
And maybe sometimes the iPad reads the bedtime stories instead. Not
less keen on that plan.
Well, it's not a plan, just looking out the window, seeing what's going on. And that happens.
Yeah, Narissa's just saying, my ex used to fall asleep reading our children bedtime stories when he was rarely there. And before that, he'd speak gobbledygook because he was dropping off. That is my experience of bedtime stories, reading a book. I would always fall asleep before they did. They thought it's hilarious. Well, so we've got a question. John Rhymer saying, in Denmark, are there many men who are early years teachers and primary school teachers?
Yes. We have quite a few men there. I am not sure about the percentage, but if you go into a school, there will in every school be men there, and quite a few. 30-40%, I'd say.
That's a really good percentage, actually. I think that's fantastic.
That's good.
Yeah, we're getting there, but we've still got far more women teachers than we have men.
Yeah.
In primary, it's different. In secondary,
Well,
different kettle of fish.
Okay, so you have more men in secondary?
Yeah, there's more male teachers in secondary than there are in primary.
One of the things that are a discussion in my group of friends these days is that problem that our generation grew up with women in the daycare and in the kindergarten and in the schools. So a lot of us learned that having a good relationship with a woman is when she's not mad at you and leaves you alone.
Right.
And some actually try to put that on their girlfriend, saying, okay, you're not mad, then things are good. And try to apply the same technology as when they wanted to be friends with a teacher or a pedagogue. That's not very good, because that doesn't make great men.
Makes terrible men. And it shows the importance of stories once again, doesn't it? I mean, that's the thing, is stories can be such a connection between people, and it's just such a fantastic way of giving children and adults positive attention, I think. And we all need attention. We all need hooker. We all need hugs. And
the piece I'm working on right now is two teenage boys sitting in the sunset on a gravel ditch and talking about, how do you know when you're an adult man? Because obviously it's not a legal age of 18, doesn't do it. How do you know when you're a real man? Not in a like an alpha macho kind of way, but in your heart. And they have no clue of knowing, because all the men are not there. They're not available. So nobody can show them. And what women tells you how men should be is not always very useful. Sorry. So they have to go out and find heroes. They have to find men that can turn them from boys to men. And where do those heroes grow in our society today? That's the hunt for them, is the story. So I'm taking a lot of consideration on that theme these days.
Well, I think it's the same for all young people, though. I think it's the same for men and women, and I think it's very difficult for young people in our society, because there aren't definite points. There aren't those same rituals. There aren't those same kind of welcoming into adult society and going, yeah, you got a lot to learn, but actually you're a man now, you're a woman now, and making a thing of it. There aren't those literally rites of passage. It's so it's blurry, isn't it? It's and it's all kind of stretched out, and it's lots of tiny steps, and there's such a big grey area when they're not one or the other.
Well, I think you're right about the ritual part. That is what is missing. And the elder man takes out the younger man and kind of tells them all the stories of the tribe and put them through the ritual. I don't know if it's off topic, but I did that with my son recently. Last summer, I had 4 men take him into the woods, and they were to represent each quadrant of the male psyche: the king and the warrior and the lover and the magician. And then each of them, for an hour, taught him about that field of expertise. They're really men with those skills: how to be a king, how to rule your inner kingdom and your outer, how to decide. And the warrior taught him how to do stuff. The wizard, of course, insights of life, and the lover of how to be in life. And then we buried him. I dug a hole in the ground for an hour, and we put him in there. And we did a speech of him, what we remembered about the boy. We dug him back up. We left a toy in the hole as a symbol of him and his childhood. And we lost a child, and we gained a young man.
I think that's fantastic. What a great thing to do for your son. Did he think it was fantastic?
Yes, absolutely. And from there on, I left the controls. He can always ask for advice, and I can say what I think, but I don't make him do stuff anymore. He's on his own. And every of the 4 men promised, okay, they will be his tribe. If you ever need advice, you can always come, but you're on your own now.
Lots of people are asking what age he was when you did this.
15.
I think that's just such a fabulous thing to do. And Meta's sort of saying maybe the question should be what makes you human rather than makes you one or the other gender. But I don't know. I mean, that's definitely part of it. But I do think at that age, hormones are so rampant, and the physiology of teenage boys and girls and what is expected of them is different. And I think maybe the expectations should be more similar. But I think what they're dealing with in their body and what they're able to cope with and what they need to hear is different. But that's my personal opinion.
I think so too. And I think if he decides that he's more female, that's fine. That's his life. He can go his own way. But he is born in a boy's body, now a man's body. And what he does with that, that's fine. He can go his own way.
And Meta, I do agree, with no gender, it does become really difficult to maneuver. And I think that I think that's the thing, is like I love that you designed your own ritual for your son. And I think that you need to design those rituals individually and not force anybody into being a girl or a boy, but but you're going to have, whoever you are, you're going to have a certain load of hormones and a certain cocktail that is making you head in a certain way that you're going to need a few people on the path to help you with that.
And you will be in a society where you can easily get lost. And it's very nice to know at least what your own story is and how you see yourself. The beginning of the ritual was that I had a man tying his arm to his mother, and for 3 hours they just walked tied together. And for an hour and a half, she told everything about becoming pregnant with him, expecting him, giving birth and breastfeeding and seeing him grow for an hour and a half, everything she could remember. And then on the way back, he told everything he could remember about being her son. And then with a knife, we cut the rope at a navel string and we went to the forest. And that's a part of the journey to become, I think, a man, to let go of your mother.
Definitely. And this is Maria Claire's going, how could all this be applied to storytelling? Maria, we have gone slightly off topic, and yet at the same time, I think that these sort of conversations are the ones that we don't have maybe the space to do that often. And I think that these are the conversations that you have inside and with limited other people, and you take these bits. I mean, for me, I take these bits into those stories, and it's for me, and I don't know if this is the same for you, Kasper, it's a backwards and forwards process. So I have to, with my children, I tell them the story of their life so far on their birthday, or if we don't quite have time on the birthday, all around them. So we start from my pregnancy and go up to wherever they are now. And some years they really, really want to hear it. Other years they're less open about wanting to hear it, though they actually do. But then you have those initiation stories and those and lots of stuff, about the young woman or the young boy who's going out into the world. And you take all of that stuff and you put it into those stories, but you take those stories and they really help you guide. I'm really relying on those now. My eldest daughter is now a teenager, and I'm really seeing a different side of those stories. Having done it for my teenage self, I'm now kind of doing it as the mother, sending them off, kind of what they need in their pack, what skills they need to take in the bag with them, and coming, those stories are cyclical. And I don't know how you feel about that.
My heart is totally opening. What a wonderful idea that you have. And I just want to do the same with my sons, because wow, what a gift you give them. Because how should you know in the world where you're going if you don't know where you're coming from? And you would just be lost without your stories. Nothing would make sense. We wouldn't have relations without the story of our relationship. I think that sounds beautiful. I want to do that too.
It is a lovely thing to do, and I'd say no, it is a great way. You've set your son free, but he also knows he can come back to you. We are nearly out of time.
Well, we're just beginning.
I know, this is what always happens. It just kind of like we find the meat as we get to the end. So we've had lots of questions as we go through.
Okay.
Excuse me. And but there's one that Teresa said. I did say at the beginning, if you've got any burning questions, stick them up in the Q&A, and I promise I will come back to them at the end. And I think we've done this a little bit, but she's saying, Kasper, do you use the mythologies when developing your modern tales? And you told us obviously about the story of the bear and the whiskers and Afghanistan soldiers, but I don't know if you use it in other ways. And other people have been saying, how do you take that urban thing on, which you've touched on. I
think also I need to know where I come from, and it's a very good thing to know your mythology and your folklores and your tradition. So when I have something that moves my heart in life, the last piece I did was on a girl that is alone. Her parents drink, and they forget about her, and they don't feed her, and she's stuck in alcoholism, 8 years old. And the story is about how to get out there and share that knowledge, how to trust someone new. So I go back and I look at what mythology do I know of that could somehow resemble that. And there is an Andersen tale about the ugly duckling. You, of course, know it, or don't know it.
I think most of us all know that one.
Probably know it. And as a little wave to that, she plays hide and seek in a old swan nest with one feather that becomes her caressing, soft dream pillow of flying away from this. So if you know your Andersen, you will definitely recall that story. And if you don't, you just have a swan feather, and that's fine. So I use it like that. Or I use it like, this rhythm I know from somewhere else. Can I look back and see, that's it? I just tell the old story, and that's fine. And then add a few angles to it on how I would see that story today. It's like, we all know Snow White and the Dwarfs. You know, did you tell this story ever? Maybe no. We just played around with it and say, how would that look from the male perspective, that story? That's a very much Me Too story. Because if you tell it from the prince's point of view, he's out there with his horse and he's riding around, and suddenly, boom, there's a dead woman. And he's so intrigued, he gets off the horse. His pulse is up, there's a dead woman, there's dwarfs, everything's great, and there's even fruit. So he kisses her. And that's so weird. And what does that say about the male psyche? That you're a prince, you can have anything you want, and you go for a dead woman. Why is that? What kind of drug rape is that really about?
It's a really weird story, and it is one of those stories that if I was going to tell it would take a lot of digging into. I mean, just the whole thing about the dwarves as well, and kind of... about she can never be happy. She will be living with the small folks and the midgets until a real man shows up and gives her value to life. Yeah, a real man he kisses her when she's dead.
Yeah. There is a wonderful Swedish storyteller called Löwe. And I was at a festival just before the world closed down up in northern Sweden with him. And we had this talk about happy endings and how they change over time. That what could be a happy ending this century will definitely be something else the next. And he told me a story. Do we have time for story, maybe? A bit of story, maybe?
It would be great to have
such a great story. We'll take it another time. Or what?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, the thing is, guys, if you need to go, you can. And this will be on catch up as well. And lots of people go, no, we've got time for a story. So, well, it's 8 till 9-ish. This is the joy of the internet. I have the power. We can do what we like.
It's a folktale, Swedish folktale, told over the 14th, 15th, 16th century, over and over and over. It's a great happy ending story about a king high and mighty with the castle and queen and everything, gets lost in the wood. Darkness comes, rain comes, he knocks on a cabin. Poor, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girl opens. So he decides to rape her. So he does. Next day, back to the castle. It was very nice to go and rape her. So he starts going and raping her because she's the king. And then one day the queen thinks, something's wrong. She follows the king, sees through the window what's going on. And when the king is gone, she gets the soldiers, arrests the girl for flirting with the husband, and puts her to the stakes. She needs to burn that seducer, that homewrecker. And just at the brink of time, the king rides in, stops the whole menace, saves the girl, puts the queen to the fire, burns her, marries the young girl, and they live happily ever after. Well, a few more images, but that's the story. And how can that be a happy ending? How can that be a happy ending? If you see a social level in it, that you climb on the social tree, perfect. But still, in the world today, there are cultures where women have to marry their rapist. It goes on in the world. Some men with way too much power that get their will, and that happens. And what can we share with the world to kind of stop that, or at least make someone reflect about this is going on? And that's also a way to use mythology in the old stories.
Definitely. And we have so many stories like that in Britain, and it would be seen as that would be the only way to keep your honor, you know. It's kind of, is, you know, well, it will make it all right if you get married.
That wouldn't work in Copenhagen, Denmark.
It wouldn't work here anymore. I certainly hope not anyway, but for hundreds of years that is how it was. And I think you're right. I mean, sometimes those stories need to be told from those perspective and just acknowledge what a part of our countries that's been, and that it is still happening in parts of the world.
And this is why we need to renew the tradition instead of repeat it. And this is why it's so wonderful that you do these shows, and it's an honor to join you here, Amy. Thank you for doing those shows and taking on tradition.
It has been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you tonight, and I love having this space to be able to ask those questions and to delve in and to kind of and just poke at those slightly sore places that we often don't have the space to talk about and to examine and to look at, because we need to talk about those sort of things. So we're going to wrap it up for tonight. There's a few little things that I need to say. So the first is this has been streamed to YouTube tonight. It will be available on YouTube. If you want to go back and see any of it again, you can, or if you want to pass it on to anybody, do. And all the other back episodes of Taking the Tradition On are there as well. Just go to YouTube and search for Taking the Tradition On. You will find it. And if you have enjoyed tonight, I do this really for my own benefit, my own selfishness. This is just what I like to do. But it does take a fair bit of time. So if you've enjoyed it, you fancy, you know, just putting in the price of a drink, I do now have a Patreon account. So again, if you go to Patreon and you look for Amy Douglas and you want to sign up for like £3 a month or whatever, that would be very lovely. And I would be delighted to welcome you as a patron. And there are a few small perks for patrons. So there are some exclusive videos on there. And that's also where you find out, if you want to know who is my guest next month, that is the place to go. And that's where you will hear first. I will announce it generally after that. A few upcoming events. Next week is the second week of the month, which is when exciting things happen. So Thursday the 10th is the Get a Word in Edgeways spoken word online concert. Some of the rituals that we've been talking about just fit in really well, because we've got Dan and Naomi Wormsley, who own a forest school site in Shropshire. You may have seen them recently on Channel 4 with Surviving the Stone Age, and just talking about that experience of being on the land and the books that they've got out on forest schools. We've got Fatma Murdin, who is the Birmingham Young Poet Laureate of the Year. We've got Spelling Time, fantastic British-Bulgarian storytelling, and Fran O'Boyle, who's going to be creating a mural over the evening with all of the guests, which I'm quite excited about as well. And on Friday the 11th, talking about rituals for young women, we've got Xanthi Gresham doing Day of Reckoning for Ballast. And it's part of her lunar cycle of goddesses. She's got 13 goddesses. I don't know which goddesses she's going to tell. I don't think she does either, because you, or at least the people at Blast, are going to choose the stories of which goddesses we're going to hear that night. It's going to be completely amazing. And that's nearly one more event. Sunday the 13th is that Sunday morning poetry thing, which is 9:30 on a Sunday morning, again run by Get a Word and Edgeways. Andy Jukes is here tonight. It's only half an hour. We listen to some poems. You have time to respond creatively, drawing, writing poetry, whatever you want to do. And if you want to share what you've created, then you can. And it just is a fantastic way to creatively start the day. And the rest of the day is a little bit different from having started that way. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And thank you particularly to the marvellous Kasper Sørensen.
Tack selv. Thank you.
Almost right.
Thanks
And if you could all just put your virtual hands together, you can clap on the chat, and I'm going to do this on behalf of all of you to go woo.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for all of your thoughts and your stories and your ideas and your way of looking at the world, Kasper, and it's been an absolute delight. So thank you very much.
Any day you call, Amy, any day.
Go safe, go well, and we'll see you all hopefully next month.